Imagine this: a bustling movie set, cameras rolling, lights flashing, and an air of creativity buzzing everywhere. But beneath the glamour lies an unsettling scene. A well-known director, known for his demanding nature, loses his temper and starts mistreating a beautiful, majestic horse that's meant to play a crucial role in the production. The crew watches in uneasy silence, unsure of how to intervene without risking their jobs. Little does the director know, among the quiet observers stands a Hollywood icon, Keanu Reeves, watching the entire ordeal unfold. Keanu, known for his kindness and humility both on and off the screen, stands back for a moment, processing what he's seeing. He's just there to visit the set, not part of the project, but now he's caught in an unexpected moral dilemma. Will he step in and risk derailing the production or remain an onlooker like the rest? The tension builds as the director's behavior escalates, and the horse starts to show signs of distress. What happens next is something no one on set saw coming. Stay tuned to see how this story takes an unexpected twist and what Keanu does that leaves everyone speechless. This is a moment that reminds us all why true heroes don't just exist in the movies, they walk among us. The air was heavy with tension as the director's voice boomed across the set. His frustration echoed as he barked orders at the handlers, blaming the horse for not hitting its mark. The majestic creature, a chestnut beauty named Apollo, pawed at the ground nervously, its eyes wide with confusion. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared to speak up. The director had a reputation for being ruthless, and challenging him often came with consequences: lost jobs, ruined reputations, or worse. Keanu Reeves stood at the edge of the chaos, blending in with the crew. He had come to visit a friend working on the film, curious to see the production in action. But what he had stumbled upon was far from the polished magic of Hollywood. His calm demeanor betrayed little, but his sharp eyes missed nothing. He watched as the director lashed out again, this time demanding the handlers tighten Apollo's reins to force compliance. The horse reared slightly, its discomfort evident, and a ripple of unease swept through the crew. One of the handlers, a young woman with a deep love for animals, hesitated. Her hand hovered near the reins, her expression torn between obeying orders and protecting the horse. Keanu noticed her hesitation and took a step closer, his presence understated yet commanding. She glanced at him, recognizing him immediately, her face a mix of relief and uncertainty. He gave her the smallest nod, a silent message of reassurance. Meanwhile, the director grew more agitated. "Do I have to do everything myself?" he snarled, stepping toward the horse. Apollo shifted nervously, sensing the hostility. The tension on set was palpable, the crew collectively holding their breath. Keanu's jaw tightened ever so slightly. He knew this moment was critical. What happened next could either defuse the situation or escalate it into something far worse. As the director reached for the reins, another voice broke through the tension. It was one of the veteran crew members, an older man who had seen his fair share of on-set dramas. "Maybe we should give the horse a break," he suggested cautiously. "Animals don't respond well to stress, and we've been at this for hours." The director shot him a withering glare. "Are you the director, or am I? We don't have time for breaks. If this horse can't handle the job, we'll find another one that can." The words hung in the air like a slap. Apollo's handler flinched, her hand instinctively reaching out to comfort the horse. Keanu took another step forward, his expression calm but his eyes steely. He wasn't one to seek the spotlight in situations like this, but he also couldn't stand by and watch an innocent creature suffer. "Excuse me," Keanu said, his voice low but firm. It was the first time he had spoken, and the effect was immediate. The director froze mid-motion, turning to face him, his irritation quickly replaced by surprise. The crew exchanged looks, a mixture of shock and anticipation. No one had expected Keanu to step in, least of all the director. "And who are you, exactly?" the director asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "Are you here to give me advice on how to run my set?" Keanu tilted his head slightly, his calm demeanor unshaken. "No," he said evenly, "but I do know a thing or two about treating animals with respect." It's clear Apollo is stressed. Pushing him harder isn't going to get you the results you want. It'll just make things worse. The director's face turned a deep shade of red. "With all due respect, Mr. Reeves," he said, his tone heavy with sarcasm, "this isn't one of your action movies. This is real work, and I don't need some actor telling me how to handle my set." Keanu's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, disappointment, perhaps, or resolve. He didn't back down. "You're right," he said simply. "This isn't a movie. This is real. And that's why it matters how you treat everyone here, human or animal. Apollo's doing his best. Maybe you should, too." The set fell into a stunned silence. The director looked like he might explode, but before he could respond, Apollo let out a distressed whinny, drawing everyone's attention back to the horse. The young handler stepped in quickly, soothing the animal with soft words and gentle strokes. Keanu turned his focus to her, his presence grounding her as she worked to calm Apollo down. The crew began to shift. Some of them moved closer, their silent support for Keanu evident in their body language. Others whispered quietly, the weight of the moment sinking in. For years, many of them had endured the director's outbursts, convinced they had no choice if they wanted to keep their jobs. But seeing Keanu, someone with so much to lose, stand up to him sparked something in them. A question lingered in the air: if he could take a stand, why couldn't they? The director, sensing the shift in the room, tried to regain control. "Fine," he snapped, throwing up his hands. "Take a break. 15 minutes. But when we come back, I expect results." He stormed off, his frustration evident, but the moment didn't feel like a victory. The tension still lingered, and the crew remained on edge. Keanu stayed by Apollo's side, helping the handler ensure the horse was calm and comfortable. The young woman looked at him with gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. "I didn't know what to do." "You did the right thing," Keanu replied, his voice kind but firm. "Sometimes standing still takes more courage than moving forward." As the break unfolded, conversations began to ripple through the crew. People shared stories of other incidents, times when the director had crossed the line, and their own fears of speaking up. Keanu listened quietly, his presence a steadying force. He didn't offer solutions or grand speeches, he simply listened, making it clear that their voices mattered. But the conflict was far from over. The director wasn't the kind of man to let a moment like this go, and Keanu knew it. The question wasn't whether there would be repercussions, it was how far the director would go to reassert his dominance. And as the crew prepared to return to work, a quiet sense of unease settled over the set. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not just Keanu's resolve but the courage of everyone involved. What would happen when the cameras rolled again? Would the director's behavior escalate, or would the crew finally find their collective voice? One thing was certain: the story was far from over, and the stakes were higher than anyone realized. As the break came to an end, the crew hesitantly returned to their positions. The director emerged from the shadows, his expression carefully composed, though his eyes burned with barely concealed frustration. He was a man who thrived on control, and the events of the last hour had shaken his grip. Keanu remained near Apollo, helping the handler ensure the horse was calm and ready to work again. The young woman, bolstered by his quiet support, stood taller now, her confidence visibly growing. The director's voice sliced through the tension. "All right, everyone, back to work. Let's get this shot done, and no more delays." His tone was sharp, but it lacked the same venom as before, almost as if he knew pushing too hard now might backfire. The crew moved quickly, setting up the next scene with practiced efficiency, but an unspoken shift had occurred. People exchanged glances, silent acknowledgments that the power dynamic had cracked, even if just slightly. For the first time, they felt like they weren't entirely at the mercy of the director's whims. As the cameras rolled, Apollo performed beautifully, his movements fluid and graceful now that the tension had eased. The scene, which had seemed impossible earlier, came together seamlessly, proving what many on set already knew: patience and respect could achieve far more than force. The director watched from his chair, his expression unreadable, though it was clear he couldn't argue with the results. When the scene wrapped, a small ripple of applause spread through the crew. It wasn't loud or celebratory, more a quiet acknowledgement of the moment. The director didn't stop it, but his lips thinned into a tight line. He gave a curt nod and muttered something about reviewing the footage before stalking off to his trailer. As the crew began to pack up for the day, Keanu stayed behind, helping Apollo's handler lead the horse back to the stables. The young woman, whose name he finally learned was Clara, opened up as they walked. She shared how she had dreamed of working with animals on film sets but had been disillusioned by the harsh realities of the industry. "It's hard sometimes," Clara admitted, stroking Apollo's neck. "You want to do what's right, but there's so much pressure to stay quiet. People like him," she nodded toward the director's trailer, "make it feel like speaking up isn't an option." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "It's not easy," he said, his voice calm and steady. "But moments like today remind us that change is possible, even if it starts small. You stood your ground when it mattered. That's something to be proud of." Clara smiled, her resolve strengthening. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." As they reached the stables, Apollo nickered softly, nudging Keanu's shoulder in what felt like a gesture of gratitude. Keanu chuckled, giving the horse a final pat before turning to leave. The next day, the atmosphere on set was noticeably different. Word had spread about what had happened, and while the director still held his position of power, he seemed more restrained, almost cautious. Crew members who had previously worked in silence began speaking up, suggesting better ways to handle both the animals and the scenes. Clara, emboldened by her experience, took a more active role in advocating for Apollo's well-being, her confidence inspiring others to follow suit. Keanu continued to visit the set, not as a passive observer but as a quiet force for good. He spent time with the crew, listening to their stories and offering encouragement. His presence served as a reminder that even in an industry often dominated by egos and power struggles, kindness and integrity could still make a difference. Meanwhile, the director found himself facing an unexpected challenge. Several crew members had submitted formal complaints about his behavior, and the production company began an internal review. It wasn't the first time his actions had been called into question, but this time felt different. The crew's newfound unity made it clear that they wouldn't tolerate mistreatment any longer. As the days turned into weeks, the production began to run more smoothly. The director, though still demanding, seemed to have tempered his approach, perhaps realizing that his previous methods had alienated those around him. Clara's bond with Apollo grew stronger, and the horse, once skittish and uneasy, became a symbol of resilience and trust. By the time filming wrapped, the set felt like a different place. The crew celebrated not just the completion of the movie but also the sense of camaraderie they had built along the way. Clara, now more confident than ever, approached Keanu on the final day to thank him once again. "You didn't have to get involved," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "But you did. And it made all the difference." Keanu smiled, his trademark humility shining through. "Sometimes it's the little things that matter most," he replied. "And when you see something wrong, you have a choice. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away." As Clara watched him walk away, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just someone who worked with animals on set, she was an advocate, a protector. And she knew she would carry that with her wherever her career took her next. In the end, the story of Apollo, the director, and Keanu Reeves became something of a legend among those who had been there to witness it. It was a reminder that even in the most challenging environments, compassion and courage could create ripples of change. For the audience watching this video, the takeaway is simple yet powerful. No matter how small your voice may feel, standing up for what's right can inspire others to do the same. Whether it's speaking out against mistreatment, supporting someone in need, or simply leading by example, your actions have the power to make a difference. And in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, those moments of kindness and integrity are what truly shine.